Now, according to sources, Prince William isn't very happy with Netflix over reports that the controversial BBC Panorama interview with his mother, Princess Diana, the former Princess of Wales, will feature in the latest series of The Crown. The nation's favourite Dame Judi Dench, has accused The Crown of crude sensationalism and called it cruelly unjust. This came in the same week as Meghan Markle's interview with Variety magazine, which I'm sure you've all rushed out to buy. That was published, in which she said the Queen's death was a complicated time for the family. Well, the royal biographer Tom Bower joins me now. No doubt, Tom, you are clutching your issue of that Variety magazine interview. You've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. I mean, she says there it's been a difficult time. I mean, it's been a difficult time for many members of that family, and no doubt thanks to Meghan Markle's meddling over recent years, Tom.
Well, absolutely. But I do think that that long interview had a couple of gems. First of all, she admits that it's a complicated time, but she also admits that she's got a problem with a forthcoming Netflix series about herself and Harry. And that's going ahead despite her protests. So what is very fascinating at the moment about Meghan, which especially at the time of The Crown coming out now as well, is that she keeps on doing these interviews to promote herself. There seems to be a great splurge of Meghan confessions and Meghan interviews and Meghan appearances because she's trying to present herself as somebody who's really important in America. And in that, I think she's succeeding. And I think that more and more Americans, again, are turning and saying what she's saying is credible. And unfortunately, the Crown series will actually strengthen her case that somehow the royal family is troubled and Meghan is the victim of their doings and their goings on.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder then, Tom, that sort of sums it all up, doesn't it? Meghan Markle realised that cake and receptions in rainy old Blighty weren't going to offer the same kind of audience that the victim-chasing narratives in America open up to both Meghan and Harry. That's what's at the heart of that move, that decision to leave the royal family and leave the working royal household.
Well, of course, you're absolutely right. That's what happened nearly 2 years ago now. That's exactly why she left, because she never wanted really to stay. She wanted the label, she wanted the title, she wanted the money. She didn't get so much money, but she did get the status. And now she's set on building herself up in America. And all these interviews are all set to do that. And the Crown series will strengthen her own case that the Crown and the Queen and Prince Charles, who then was, are somehow flawed and that she is the victim of this broken family. Well, and she's like Diana.
Yes, well, exactly. That Diana reference is one that I think likes to be implied by many sympathetic members of the American media. But on The Crown, it potentially is very insensitive, is it not, that the show is depicting Diana's interview with Martin Bashir, given all that we now know about the rank dishonesty that was put about to actually obtain that interview in the first place?
Well, I'm a great believer in freedom of speech and freedom of broadcast. So I do think the Crown has an absolute right to be broadcast. And as for Diana herself in that interview, there's no doubt Martin Bashir and the BBC lied to Diana and then covered up the lie, which was as bad as the lie itself. I mean, that was a shocking example of concealment. But nevertheless, she gave the interview, and what she said she believed. And therefore, to actually consign this interview to history and to somehow suggest that it should never be seen again is ridiculous. Yeah. It was a part of the royal story. You just have to put it into context. So I think the Crown is quite right to somehow recreate the interview because it was a profoundly damaging moment for the royal family. And Diana, although she eventually regretted having given the interview because of the damage it caused, was speaking from the heart. And I think we've got to sympathise with that.
Yeah, because the Crown also shows Charles as, and that interview in particular, I think, did a lot of damage to Charles personally, didn't it? His reputation in the country. But the Crown depicts Charles as being very cruel, almost callous, you might say, towards Diana, and seemingly lays most of the blame at his door for the breakdown of the marriage. Do you think that's a fair and accurate being the imperative word there, because of the comments by Dame Judi Dench and others, that it's actually dishonest, that the disclaimer is right, and actually the Crown isn't putting across perhaps a more fair and honest interpretation of what actually happened?
Well, only two people ever know what happened in a marriage.
Well, that's
whereas
true.
Diana would say, there were three in her marriage.
Yes.
But I think the point is that I would blame Charles, because in the end he was a mature man, and Diana was a 19, 20-year-old virgin who had no experience of life and relied on Charles. And Charles, frankly, didn't love her and didn't treat her very well, badly in the end. But this is history now, and I think that we've got to come to terms with that. He certainly has.
Yeah.
And what's really happening is the Crown is making huge entertainment value, and our discussion now is marvelous for the Netflix group because it promotes people's interest to subscribe and buy and watch it.
Well,
but,
indeed.
that is history.
Yeah. All right, Tom,